Hi everyone, my name is James Pham. I am the CEO and co-founder of Opsin. We save enterprises from data exposure risk using Gen AI tools such as Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. Um, I have with me here Bryan Willett, the former CISO of Lexmark. Brian, honored to have you. Maybe you can start with a little bit introduction about yourself, what you've been up to.
Sure. So Bryan Willett, as you said, I am now, as of today, the former CISO at Lexmark. I've been with Lexmark for 28 years,
Wow,
a long time, and their CISO for the last 9 years. And it's been a wonderful ride. I got to say that the people I had been around at Lexmark, they're wonderful, and I learned a lot and had a great career.
definitely. Very excited to have you here. Um, in this oversharing podcast. So, for the audience context, could you talk a little bit more about Lexmark and what they do, and just to give the audience a little bit understanding about like the industry and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, so Lexmark, if I go way back, Lexmark used to be IBM. IBM decided to sell off their typewriter and printer division, which became Lexmark. Lexmark manufactured printers, laser printers, and copiers.
Mm,
And there was a period in time they were in the inkjet business, but they had sold that off. But most recently, it had been focused on laser printers and copiers. There had been some interesting adjacent business opportunities that they were seeking out, which was called our Optra offering.
mm,
Optra was a few different capabilities. One was kind of a data service where they would help provide AI based services to assist your process. Think of it as Lexmark had a managed print service offering where we had highly optimized the processes used to
mm,
deliver to the customer, and we used AI to help with that.
mm,
This was taking that same methodology and applying it to another OEM's challenges, right?
mm,
They have hardware or processes they have built, and they need to optimize it, and we
yeah.
were there to help them. And then the second part of their offering was their Optra IoT, which was AI on the edge.
Mm,
So it was an interesting platform that was low cost, but gave a customer an ability to really do a lot of on the edge analysis to again get metrics, optimize process, etc.
yeah, a really good overview of the company and the industry. Um, and like every other company out there, you guys are adopting Gen AI for everything that you do. So maybe let's talk a little bit more about the AI adoption strategies. We could start with as a corporate level. So how is like Smart approaching the enterprise AI adoptions? I know you mentioned about like kind of external services, but like internally, could you talk a little bit more like how they are doing it and what is driving the business case for AI tools?
Sure. Yeah. So Lexmark has really been kind of all in on AI. There was a recognition that we needed productivity enablers, right? Things that were going to move every individual faster um, to make up for candidly downsizings that had occurred throughout the business,
Mm,
and so AI was kind of being unleashed in all areas of the business, whether it was Copilot being turned on in our Microsoft environment, whether it was
mm,
um, services. So looking at our processes where we were delivering and getting AI to optimize the analysis of data that went into
mm,
the process that delivered service.
mm,
Um, that was heavily analyzed using AI to do analysis of various business data and providing results that people could action.
mm,
Um, and then you get into specific teams, and there were things like on the sales side, looking at it for lead generation.
mm,
Um, looking at it for security space, and how do we make individuals like security operations team more efficient, more effective.
Mm.
So really holistically looking across the environment, and every team had some flavor of that they've been analyzing um, in order to make themselves more effective at their job.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's not like it both at the enterprise level, but it's also at the security organization level, right? I think that you mentioned about like using AI tools to optimize processes and things like that. Um, and so you could double click a little bit more on the productivity side of the house, like what kind of tools that you are using currently?
Copilot is a large one.
Mm,
Lexmark is a heavy Microsoft user, and so um, Copilot is used on the productivity suite throughout, right? And
throughout. Okay.
that's good and it's bad. Uh,
Mm,
is the good is the individuals who have access to data sets, they're able to look at it much more quickly and get answers out of that data much more quickly.
mm,
The bad is you frequently in large organizations overshare, and
mm,
so people end up with access to data that is uh, that should not have been shared, but in theory was accidentally shared more broadly than it should have been. And so Copilot or any LLM sitting on top of the data set just makes it that much easier to access,
mm,
and presents a it's not necessarily a different risk level, but it's certainly an
mm.
easier thing to access.
Yeah, definitely. And then you mentioned that is Copilot is the last one in terms of the adoption itself. I've heard a lot of teams keep asking themselves questions like, "What's the return on investment when it comes to tools such as Copilot?" Right. So
Mhm.
usually, what I've seen people doing is the first thing that they do is they have like some sort of like a smaller rollout, like 50, 100, or 200 or 300 licenses. To evaluate return on investment, and then the second thing is on the data security side of the house, like the governance and things like that. And it sounds like you guys passed that phase of return on investment in a way.
I would say that we were constantly reevaluating the return on investment.
Mm,
Maybe an area that I didn't even mention, but code development. Um,
mm,
a tool we used in that space was GitHub Copilot, as an
mm,
example. And when you as the developers are using it, we are seeing a difference in usage based on the experience of the developer.
right.
And it's kind of interesting. And it also depends on how what code the developer is operating in. If someone's jumping between different code bases frequently, the using AI to understand what that code does is
Mm,
fantastic, right? It'll quickly analyze, it'll give you a nice
yeah.
summary of what it does. But using it to develop the code, we're seeing a lot of mixed results at the moment with that. And I
Mm,
do think some of that is the models that are available to the developers. Some are better at it than others, and it's I think every day you could probably go look at a different model, and it may have leapfrogged the other one in terms of its ability to be a effective code assistant.
mm, that makes sense. So basically, you guys are using GitHub Copilot, and then you talk about data oversharing. So I would imagine that Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Yep.
Um, and any variant of Copilot that you guys using? It sound like because Copilot, Microsoft is super confusing. Like they name every single thing Copilot, and every
Yeah.
time we talk about Copilot, like, is that the same Copilot we're talking about, or is it a different one?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the branding is it could be better, and that's it's not just Copilot. I mean the overuse of brands. I hate to pick on them, but I'm going to pick a little. The overuse of brands at Microsoft is a real problem. Um, but yes, there are different models in all of them, and we do see different effectiveness of each of those models. I think, my opinion, I do think that on the GitHub side, they are they're getting a little better with making more than just OpenAI models available to them to the developer, and that's I think that's beneficial, right? And
Mm.
allows them to choose and determine what's most effective for them. It's just on the productivity side, you don't have that choice, and you're kind of it is what it is. And what I find is early on, people are amazed with it and infatuated with it, but then in their personal life, when they use other tools, they come back into it and they sometimes say, "Oh my goodness, this is
Mm.
this needs to be updated." Uh, so it is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And back to the return on investment side of the house, right? So it's all like it depends on the use cases, like specifically for GitHub Copilot. Like if you use it to understand about the code base, it's sound like it's summarized pretty well, right? Like, but when it actually come to doing the actual codes, that's where it sucks. And that probably it require like human intervention on that front.
Yeah, and I do think you got to set the right expectation on what you're hoping to get out of it. I think it can come up with a great framework for a function.
Yeah.
Um, but you still probably need to get in there and modify it for what you need out of that function. Um, but if people accept that, adopt that, um, I do view it as a productivity enhancer. It should help them to move much faster in terms of producing capability uh,
Mm.
at a faster pace.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we talk about GitHub Copilot, and when it comes to return on investment on Microsoft 365 Copilot, like what have you seen um, the more productive use cases there?
Oh, email,
Mm.
constructing a good email. I think that's certainly one of the top ones. Um, Meeting notes. So you have a Teams meeting and record it and giving you good actionable notes as well as the actions from that. I think that's a good use case.
Mm.
Um, when someone has taken and curated data in SharePoint and they put an agent on top of that folder in SharePoint, I do see value in that many times, right? Where it's basically using RAG in the back end to look at the data in in a given folder. I've seen a lot of value in that. But when it comes to my experience, when it has come to me going, hey, there was a meeting I had with so and so, and we talked about something, something specific. Can you find that meeting or that chat and help me locate it? I've had no success.
Yeah, and then it sometimes it can even hallucinate, right? So,
Right. Right.
and I think that back to your comments earlier about like you have to manage expectations for the users, like what is a good use case, what's the bad use case. I think it's just like with any other tools out there. There's aspect that it good at, and then there are aspect like it had to improve. And I think along the way, I think that they will continuously improve it, right? I think it's
It
gonna
will.
be like super suck, okay, and then maybe someday it will become good. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something that Microsoft does never get good, but but I think they do show a lot of improvements along the way.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm picking a little on Microsoft, but it has and continues to improve. And they're going to. Them and Google and Facebook, Meta. I mean, they're all improving rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, so we're going to continue to see rapid evolution in that space, and I think it's important for individuals and leadership, um, to continue learning, understanding what it's capable of doing, what it's good at, and making sure that you're leveraging it the best you can for what it's good at.
Yeah.
Uh, but know what it's not good at, and pay attention to their evolution, because it probably will get good at it at some point.
Right.
It's just going to take a little time.
Exactly. Okay, so I think we talk about two things, right? Return on investment. The other is the data security and AI governance challenges. Um, so it's good that we dive deeper into that aspect of return on investment. So let's talk a little bit more from the security perspective on the AI governance and challenges. Um, so, what kind of risks that have you been seeing so far, and what kind of pain point as a CISO that you're seeing in terms of security? Right, like every new tools, there's always some security components in it.
Yeah.
Um, and just curious to hear your thoughts. Like, what's the pain point that you have?
I think so. I have a few that just come to mind immediately. One, you mentioned it earlier, that organizations many times will do kind of a slow rollout. They'll want to check that return on investment, and so they'll have a limited number of people who have access to Copilot. Problem is you have the haves and the have-nots. Well, the have-nots also want productive. They want this productivity gain as well, and they end up going out for their own shadow IT and finding a service that'll record a meeting, and your data from that meeting's going somewhere, but it's not protected from a corporate standpoint, right? So you
Right.
have leakage of information. So
Mm.
that's one angle. Another angle is um, as companies like Microsoft make access within the productivity suite more and more accessible in many new forms all the time, you end up with I'll say data access problems that you may have, but it's much more accessible now, right?
Mm.
You can go under the LLM and ask questions, and it's going to give you answers to the breadth of data that you have access to, and maybe you should or should not have access to it. So it's a data governance problem that really shows up in that space. And that's, I think, any organization, if they go look at for instance, their SharePoint environment, their Drive environment, their so Google Drive, OneDrive, it doesn't matter. In that organization, in that tenant, chances are you have oversharing of data, and it gets difficult most of the time to know what data do you own and who are you sharing it with, to be able to audit, to then go fix it. I think we all kind of know we got a problem, but it's difficult to fix the problem because you don't know where all the problems are at. So that's another area of challenge. Um, so those are kind of two key ones that come to mind for me.
Yeah, so let double click on these two pain points. So one that you mentioned about the have not, that also want productivity. They go out, they acquire their own toolings,
Hmm.
right? Like maybe you use Copilot, but then they go out and use like OpenAI or Claude or like whatever models that are out there. Like pretty much every SaaS out there have some sort of like AI nowadays. Um, how do you go about, one is just to get visibility into it, and then two is how do you go about like enforcing and kind of educating, and maybe not even before that, how do you go about like reducing the risk when it comes to shadow AI?
So there's several ways that you approach it, and I am a big believer, and you have to approach this many different ways. There's not one way to solve these. First and foremost, it's awareness. You
Yeah.
have to communicate regularly with your employees and make them aware of the risk and why they shouldn't do it. The second is monitoring. You have to have the ability to monitor your environment and see when someone connects something to your environment and
Mm.
be able to kick it off. And hopefully it's a reputational type of analysis of that. The third is prevention, and that is just don't allow them to connect.
Mm.
That would be ideal. But the problem with that many times is um, you have business areas that are regularly trying to they're trying to make their processes more efficient, and so they need to connect in. Um, and there's a balance there between providing the governance over top of them connecting in and allowing the business to move fast. So
Mm.
so organizations have to decide: are they going to have a Fort Knox and lock it all down, or are they going to have some level of autonomy or privilege to the business areas to be able to do stuff? You're
Mm.
empowering, but you got to hold them accountable, right? Um, or it's a free for all, which hopefully none of your listeners are in a free for all environment. But
Mm.
um, so when you're in that second area, right, where you're empowering, but you have to hold them accountable, I
Mm.
view that's where you've got to monitor and you've got to take action quickly when you see events like that occur to
Mm.
stop it from being connected and stop your data from leaking.
Yeah. Okay, I think that makes sense. I think what you talk about is a couple of layers, right? So one is education to raise awareness among the users. I feel like that's always the first and most important step,
Yep.
right? Like you want people to abide by the rules, and then next is that okay, I tell them that hey, this is good, this is not good. Then like how do I know? And that's where the monitoring come in. And then after that, you don't want incident to happen, so you want to have prevention in the first place,
Yep.
right? So that's where like sometimes you kind of like block certain risky, like DeepSeek model is an obvious one, like everyone blocking it. I feel
Yep.
so bad for the Chinese, but but that's
Yep.
a model that every enterprise I talk to, they block. But at the same time, like you cannot block everything, right? So it ended up like being like whack-a-mole kind of a game. So it's super hard, and also there's some productivities that people need to have, and you kind of like become the bad guy in the organization
Right.
here, and that's never a good place to be a bad guy. You want to be the good guy.
That's
uh,
right. You want to be a partner. Maybe you're not a good guy. Maybe you're the guy that wants to help them, but you're the coach too, and you want to help them do it kind of the right way.
yeah, yeah, I like that mentalities. Okay, so so you said you have two pain points. One is around shadow AI, and then the second is you talk about data governance, and then you kind of mentioned about like the oversharing concept. Like, could you define in a concrete way like what is oversharing? You kind of like gave an example about it, but maybe it's good to have a more definitive definitions about like what is oversharing.
Sure. Oversharing is when so teams are using uh, in our case we're Microsoft Shop, so they're using SharePoint or OneDrive regularly to do functions within their group, within their team, or by themselves. Right? They may be
Mm.
working on certain processes within the business that are important and require documents that might be stored in SharePoint, but that data may be very sensitive, right?
Mm.
It could be customer list, it could be salary information, it could be um, source code, right? I mean, it could be one of many things that are out there that what I see happen regularly is the person who set up the share site, like a SharePoint site,
Mm.
they accidentally shared it with the entire corporation,
Mm.
or they have they're sharing, but it's with people who used to be in the group and aren't part of the group anymore, right?
Mm.
They
Mm.
moved, their role changed and they moved on to other roles, but yet they still have access to the share.
Right.
And so when that happens, especially where they share it with the entire corporation and you have that level of sensitive data that's shared, AI didn't create that problem.
Mm.
It was already shared, overshared. But it made it a lot easier to go find that data, right? Because now I can ask an easy question. Hey, what's James's salary? And hey, there it is. Wow, I didn't know that. That's a fantastic salary.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of enterprises say that there are two things that people always search for. One is like salary, the other one is password. Like
Yep.
everyone
Yep.
get the answers, they always ask for those two questions.
Yep.
And so have you do you have any like real life specific example about oversharing that you might have heard or like you experienced yourself?
Well, so the examples that I kind of just gave, we've had all of those,
Hmm.
right? Where whether it was a file with salary data, what was I forgot my first one already, but we've had all of those occur. Customer data, right? Customer list. That's what it was. Customer list that were shared, or customer contracts, or we've had all of those things happen, um, and it requires a constant due diligence to remind people, well, one, to identify it and hopefully go address the oversharing. So that requires a level of tooling to go detect that and respond to it. But separately, um, there's nothing, we get back to awareness. If you really want to raise awareness, if you start to get with teams that have overshared and you're on them saying, hey, you're oversharing, and oh, by the way, we had to notify X number of, whether it be customers or employees, about this
Hmm.
oversharing event, that gets attention,
Hmm.
right? And that's a great way to, and unfortunately, I call it shock and awe, right? It's a great way to get their attention, get them thinking about it, and then get them to actively go look at what they're doing and address the
Like
share.
a it's like a teachable moment.
Yes, it's a very teachable moment.
That's like, oh, look at this. Look at what you have done. Okay,
Yeah,
this time it's a slap on the wrist, but
that's right. That's
next
right.
time it would not be so nice.
That's right.
Yeah, I really like that, and I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, right? Like there is this awareness and education, so it's not like you're using those teachable moments to be able to do that. Um, and then the question become, you also talk about like monitoring and prevention. So how do you actually monitor and prevent this oversharing risk?
Yeah. So in the Microsoft environment, that's very hard.
Hmm.
Um, I think there are interesting companies out there who are providing solutions to help monitor that and
Hmm.
detect it. Opsin being an interesting one that helps with that. Um, but the detection, I probably had. I hate to say this, but we probably had more success through detection by people reporting
it
than anything.
it's like a organic detector.
Yes, excellent way to describe it. We had excellent organic detectors.
Oh, that's interesting. How did that happen? Actually, like, do they go to you and say, "Hey, I see this. I'm not supposed to see"?
Yes. So this gets back to culture and the culture that we've built.
Hmm.
We, I'd say my organization as a whole had done a really nice job of every chance we could to educate on risk and why it's a risk, right?
Hmm.
And over the time that I've been at the CISO at Lexmark, um, we went out to the population with that in mind, right? What's the risk and why it's a risk? But
Hmm.
we made sure they knew we're available, we're here to help, and and if there's something you see, something you suspect, etc., contact us, right? We're
Hmm.
here to help. And so that's really, you know, gone broad in the organization. When somebody sees something, they were very good at bringing it to us and saying, "Hey, this looks like a concern," and then we take it from there and go and investigate and take appropriate action.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you build such a collaborative culture where people are collaborating and help, right? Like a lot of organization, people see things like, oh, cool, I see this now. I'm
Yep.
not gonna, I'm not gonna tell anybody.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that way the organic detectors are failing.
Yep.
So, and like it's good that you kind of like have that cultures, but not a lot of enterprises or organization are that lucky, right? Like people are just not gonna tell you like
Yep.
what good.
Well,
Yeah.
and that was an effort across the business,
Right.
and I can't take full credit for that because I have to give a lot of kudos to partners, the my peer leadership throughout the business. HR
Yeah.
actually did a really great job of helping drive the culture change, but
Right.
really breaking down silos, empowering people, um, uh, in collaboration, right? Those have
Actually,
been.
actually, if you can double click a level deeper on like what you do, that would be helpful. It sound like there's no kind of like technical guardrails or tools, but you have implemented an excellent programs, awareness programs, and all of that. So if you could articulate like what kind of programs that you did and what's the best practices that, let's say, if a CISO listening to the call that don't have these technical capabilities, like they can implement in their organizations, like what did you do actually, like what's the best practices there that
Yeah.
can help companies.
Yeah. So my approach has always been as many touches with the end user as possible. I try to do. For me, town halls are always important, and in a town hall, what I like to do is thing. I kind of call it tells from the sock, right?
Mm-hmm. Help on the sound. Okay.
And it is to share things that have occurred that are real events, right? I'm not telling stories about this could occur or that could occur, or this occurred to that company that has no relevance to our business. I want to tell them stories that have occurred in the business and why they're a risk, right? Explain why, explain what we're doing about it,
Mm,
and make the ask, right? What do I need of them to help prevent things like this in the future? And that ask sometimes is just be aware.
mm.
Um,
Watch out for the
and
boogeyman.
right, watch out for the boogeyman. That's right. And and if they do have questions, they do have concerns. Here's how you contact us, right? Make and repeat that over and over again. And then separately, we work closely with corporate communications, and when we see activity going on, like nefarious activity, or we have an event that occurred that's a teaching moment, we get messages sent out through email or through corpcom on our intranet, right, on our website to talk about it. We use the enterprise social media platform to also convey things, and we use that more of a real-time aspect, right? That, hey, we're seeing this going on, just be aware, or hey, upgrade your Chrome, or hey, whatever it is, the
Mm,
event of the day. We try to use that to communicate with people so they're aware about it. But
mm,
I'm a huge fan of communicating regularly, but getting in front of them, allowing them to ask questions,
mm,
because as they ask questions, um, it one may indicate challenges in your messaging, right? You may not be communicating clearly, and you may need to adapt that. But two, they anytime someone listens to something, they're still going to have some questions. They're going to have some gaps in
mm,
their thinking about it. It helps fill that. It helps show that you're transparent, honest with them,
mm,
and by doing that, just like you would with a customer, with your users, you're building a partnership with them,
mm,
and it's that partnership that that helps build that culture that you want to get to, right?
mm,
Where people know that when you're driving something or you're pushing something, whether it's a policy, whether it's a new tool, whether it's um, just a request for them, it's not me making it up.
Mm,
I'm truly doing it because there's an absolute business need that we need to do this.
mm,
And if you're pushing stuff that is because you can, not because you need to,
mm,
I feel that you lose people.
so there are real threats. Like every time Brian communicate, reach out something, there's something actually happening. It's not like the security guy try to scare the children off, like the
Right.
risky. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Back to your statement. I'm not trying to tell bedtime stories, right? Because bedtime stories are what people keep up at, what keep us up at night, right? I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make sure that as they do their day job, they are aware of risk.
Mm,
They don't have to be an expert in risk. That's our job, right?
mm.
And they can come to us. They can come to us and ask questions to get help on how to address it.
Okay. I know we have maybe 4 minutes left. So, what are the top three recommendation that you would have for CISOs who started like looking into this AI security for the enterprises?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, it's set up a good or AI governance team, and that should be coupled with your data governance team. And when you look at the construction of your AI governance team, security needs to be involved, legal needs to be involved, your AI team, AI and data science teams need to be involved.
Mm,
But don't leave out the other business areas, your marketing teams, your sales teams, your IT organization, supply chain, right? They all need to have representation in that governance group. And by doing that, you're going to, one, make everybody very aware of policy and why policies in place, right? It
mm,
helps them understand that. But two, as every one of those business areas goes and investigates new ways to use AI in their process, they're
mm,
going to be able to, they will bring it forward and it can go through a good ethics review, security review, et cetera, before it gets
mm,
put in place. So that's certainly one. Um, two, and man, I'm live and I just forgot two. Uh,
mm,
um, Data governance, AI governance. Um, my, don't be afraid to encourage your team to adopt it.
mm,
Right? I think that's important. Um, we have to encourage the adoption because those who don't adopt are going to be left behind.
mm,
So whether you're a CISO, whether you're a CIO, be ready to adopt, but um, but make sure you understand, what tools are being used and how they're being used, um, and put the right guardrails. And that's the way I try to frame it. Make sure you define the right guardrails for the use of AI in your environment. So you're not stopping it,
mm.
you're allowing it, but you're saying you can do this, you can't do that. So make sure you've done that. Um, and then three, I think it's important that you educate the users on data governance. And that's hard. It really is hard because data governance is not something that people want to think about. They've got their day job, they're doing their job, but then you're asking them, hey, go look at all the places you shared files and make sure you're sharing with the right people. That's something they don't want to deal with and they don't want to do. So the way you're going to accomplish that is through awareness campaigns. And if you've got the right tools in place, you can do it through access certification campaigns. I would just say a lot of organizations may not have that. So it just depends on their level of maturity, but you need to do that in one form or another.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, talking about your challenges, your adoption. And I'm really impressed by your ability to get the organic detectors working. That's a huge, huge uplift from people. For people who listening to the podcast, I have Brian linking. Feel free to connect with him. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.